Hello and welcome back. I am on a Zoom call right now with our Attorney General of the state of Connecticut, William Tong. He's been serving as AG since 2019. Prior to that, he was a CT House rep from 2007 to 2019. So let's just say you've got a lot of experience in the state of Connecticut and the legislature, et cetera. And Attorney General Tong, you're becoming known nationally as one of the strongest, most committed AGs out there trying to bring lawsuits against things that are just off the rails of the Trump administration. So where do you want to get started here? Because there's so much to talk about.
Well, I think thank you, Trevor, first of all. And I wish I was in studio with you back home in the Greenwich Stamford area. But I'm in the office today in Hartford. Um, I think it's really important to ground us in why this work is important. And my job every day is to protect the people of this state. And it doesn't matter if it's a Democratic president or a Republican president. We sued Joe Biden too. We sued Barack Obama too. Uh, we will take action when Connecticut residents and families are at risk, and when powerful forces, including the federal government, threaten them. And right now, it's really important to focus on we could talk about the rule of law, we could talk about the constitutional crisis, we can talk about federalism, frankly, DOGE, whatever. But at its root, this is about people. And it's about Connecticut residents and families, and people are getting hurt right now. If you're a breast cancer survivor and you rely on vital medical research funding, or you rely on public health funding, um, and your last best hope is a clinical trial, right, at Yale or Mass General. Well, the president's trying to cut that clinical trial and eliminate it. If you run a small business, and um, I was with Senator Blumenthal yesterday. We were in a grocery store talking about tariffs, and he picked up the tomato and he looked at it, and he was trying to figure out where that tomato was
Mm.
grown. And it's a Canadian tomato, right? So much of our produce comes from somewhere else, dry goods, and tariffs are crushing people right now. And then of course, if you're a student or a special ed student or a teacher, Greenwich's own Linda McMahon is trying to dismantle the Department of Education and has cut tens of millions of dollars of vital federal funding to Connecticut that the Greenwich Board of Ed, the New Canaan Board of Ed, and the Stanford Board of Ed have already budgeted for. That money's already in the budget, and she's cutting it. What are we supposed to do now? Nobody wants to raise taxes for sure. But if they keep doing it, that could be what happens. And if they defund healthcare, they defund the police, they defund medical research, they defund education, a lot of people are going to get hurt. And of course, if you're an immigrant and you work in Greenwich or Stamford and help power our local economy, you've got a target on your back.
And you are very afraid.
Yeah.
Right. This is it. And I like that anybody who's tuning in right now, this is Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends. I'm on the Zoom call with our Attorney General, William Tong. We're talking about really what is his job. And just at the bottom basis level, it's about protecting the people, the residents of the state of Connecticut. And by the way, you've done a brilliant job, beautifully done. And your point here is you've sued all presidents, whether it's
Yeah.
Democratic
Yeah.
or Republican. It doesn't matter. You're here to protect the residents of the state. And there's so many levels of problems and things that are hurting people. And from the research from at Yale for cancer that's getting cut by the NIH, I mean, it goes on and on. But I think the thing that resonates with me most, and I can't help it because it's such a dehumanizing, horrendous process that's happening right here, right in Stanford. I don't know if we're doing this or seeing this happen in Greenwich, but people getting taken, without due process, right off the street by
Yeah.
masked people without badges, put in unmarked cars, and these people have no recourse. How are you handling that?
Yeah, that's not who we are. I mean, that is if you describe that scene to me 5 years ago, 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, I would tell you that's not happening in the United States of America. That does not happen in the United States of America. They don't get shipped off to a detention facility in Florida called Alligator Alcatraz, or they're not being sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador called Sacat. Um, but that is what's happening in
That is what's
America,
happening.
and that's who we are becoming. And I think we've got to speak loudly and push back hard and say, that's who we're becoming, but that's not who we have to be, right?
Exactly.
And so what can we do? Well, here's the truth. The truth is the federal government has broad authority over immigration. Why is that? Well, it's a basic foundational principle known as federalism. And I'll do constitutional law in 60 seconds.
Love it.
Still, this country is a federation. It's a federation of 50 sovereign states, including Connecticut. What does that mean? Connecticut gets to live the way Connecticut wants to live. We have power over our own destiny. That's why we have a governor, a legislature, and attorney general. That's why New York State Police can't come into Connecticut tonight and enforce the law in Greenwich because they don't have any jurisdiction here.
Mm-hmm.
This is Connecticut. And so uh, we are largely independent of each other and of the federal government, except that as a federation, we have delegated limited powers pursuant to the United States Constitution to the federal government. That's the structure of our country. 50
Mm-hmm.
sovereign states, and we all decided, hey, we're going to give some power to the federation itself, to the federal government, to take care of things that we as states are ill-equipped to handle individually,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like a massive standing military, navy,
Yeah.
right?
Or
And
interstate highways. Like
yes,
you need
right,
connecting highways, right?
right. Um,
Infrastructure.
and of course, immigration. And
Immigration.
in a rational world, that makes sense. Like Connecticut doesn't have the resources to send people to, the border or to JFK and manage the flow in and out. Somebody has to do that for us on behalf of all of us, which is why the federal government has broad authority. But uh, what that also means is that that's their job, not our job.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so they can't come into Connecticut and tell Connecticut local police or state police, why don't you do our immigration enforcement for us? They can't
Mm-hmm.
order us to do that. And in fact, Connecticut state law says that if you're a local police officer and state police, you don't do that. You're not allowed to
Mm.
do that. Why
Okay.
are you not allowed? Because we want you to do your job.
Right.
We want you to focus on keeping people safe in Greenwich and Stamford and New Canaan. We don't want you to be doing the federal government's job, which isn't part of your job description.
Yep.
You should
Yep.
focus on your job.
So I do know that you have written a letter to the House saying you and another, I think 16 other AGs saying you we can't have masked ICE people
Yes.
who don't present badges
Yes.
taking people off the streets of our state. How do you think that's going to go? What's going to happen? There will be there any changes whatsoever there?
I'm not terribly hopeful that this Justice Department, this Homeland Security Department is going to do anything or care. Uh, I think what they underestimate and don't value is the safety of the agents themselves.
Right.
Because if you show up you show up masked, unidentified, and if you live in a jurisdiction, maybe not Connecticut, but in Texas, where people have stand your ground laws,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
Which allows you to defend your home with your firearm, and you don't have a duty to retreat, people are going to get hurt. People are going to get shot. And I just think it's a foolish policy. Um, we're going to fight about whether they're allowed to do that and in what circumstances. But at the end of the day, doing that at all is a really bad idea.
Well, so just a kind of, I was looking up some numbers about immigrants, and many people of Hispanic backgrounds voted for this administration,
Yes,
believing
yes.
that they would be getting rid of the worst of the violator, the people who created crimes and did terrible things. Well, there's there's a bunch of statistics, excuse me, I can't speak today, out there saying that native born Americans are 26% more likely to commit crimes. The people that are getting caught and taken off the streets here are less than 2 to 3% have done any crime. Some of them have just like had a speeding ticket. And that's where they're getting caught in front of the courthouse. They're in the process of becoming full citizens. They're trying to pay their taxes. They're trying to run their life by the rules. Yet they're still being taken off the streets. And these are productive individuals who are working hard, and some have small businesses. It goes on and on about what is happening out there that I'm not sure most people understand how brutal this is for this community.
So, I encourage people who are listening, take a walk down the avenue today and look at all the restaurants and retail stores and tell me what you think the proportion of immigrants is working in those restaurants and cleaning those stores and businesses and moving freight in and out of those restaurants and retailers. You know, go to the Delamar, go to the Hyatt Regency, and tell me what proportion you think of immigrants run those two huge operations. And then go to the various office parks, Pickwick, whatever it is. Go to West Putnam Avenue and look at the office buildings. We don't have high rises in Greenwich, but we have office buildings. You know, they're they're
They're somewhere in between.
they're in there. They're meshed into the landscaping. Or, go to Stanford this afternoon and look at all those high rises. What's the proportion of immigrants that work in those places? And I think that you will quickly come to the conclusion that every sane, rational person has to come to. I'm sorry. You have to acknowledge that America runs on two things: Duncan and immigrant workers, right?
Absolutely.
And without
Yes.
immigrant workers, okay, there's no economy, folks. Like none.
None. I don't know
Okay,
what.
how about take a ride through mid and back country,
Mm,
right? And into Stamford and North Stamford and all the service providers, that are mowing lawns and cleaning houses. And
elder care,
yeah, I can assure
nannies.
you that the proportion of immigrants is extraordinarily high, well more than a majority, and that many of them are probably have a complicated immigration status.
Mhm.
And even if they don't have a complicated immigration status, they live in a household that has a complicated immigration
Yes.
story because most immigrant households are mixed status. There are
Hmm.
American citizen children. There are spouses that are citizens, but the other spouse is not, or partners who are on a
Hmm.
temporary visa, but the other is not. You know, this is the truth, not just about
Yes.
America, not just about Stanford and Norwalk, but about Greenwich.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you pull all of them out, it all falls apart. It collapses. They're not optional.
No, we need
Okay.
our people here working,
And what I
running
say
the
to
economy.
people too, and they're like, well, they should just become citizens. And if they can't, they should go home. And I will not, do business with, I don't want to and don't have to do business with undocumented people. Okay, all right. If you're going to take
Try.
that position,
Yeah.
try. Okay. If you refuse to eat off of any dishes that are washed by undocumented hands, you will
Mm,
never eat in a restaurant in Greenwich or Stamford again.
such a good point. Such a good point.
The truth.
And
Good
President
luck.
Trump himself has had run golf courses and hotels and whatever buildings who have used, without question, undocumented workers.
Give me a break.
I mean, it's
Just give me a break.
mind
Right?
boggling. The fear, though, I think one of the things that you've mentioned in your letter, et cetera, that this has created across the board in our immigrant communities. We actually in Greenwich right here we have, I think it's 26% Hispanic uh, residents right here in Greenwich. Some are legally here, some are not. But that community itself is so afraid. I've talked to some friends who are just blown away. And again, they were like, we thought we were just voting for the criminals to be taken out, but now they're deporting our husbands, our, you know, our parents. Moms are getting deported with kids, dropping kids off at school. This is inhuman. I can't understand the thought process.
Um, this is driven by um, hatred and scapegoating. It doesn't have a rational economic purpose. There's no there's no strategy here. It's just people are angry. We live in a time of grievance, and a way to blame this is a way to blame other people for
Yes.
whatever you're unhappy about.
Mm-hmm.
They blaming immigrants and undocumented people and people who are Hispanic or Asian or Haitian, and making villains of them is how you make yourself feel better, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, and rationalize these policy decisions. Um, but it's a road to nowhere.
Yeah.
And I guess what I would say is um, to people in Greenwich, Stamford, New Canaan, so many of us, including me, are the sons and daughters or the grandchildren of immigrants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when your Italian American immigrant relatives, forebears, grandparents, um, parents, Irish American, there's a huge immigrant Irish population in our area.
I'm
And it's
95% Irish, FYI.
right. But I'm talking about like people who
Yeah,
just got here
got
yesterday.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were all treated the same way, horribly. And they also did a ton of work to create a foothold for themselves and their families and to build businesses and buy houses and build community. And now, I mean, candidly, our area is pretty diverse,
Yes.
especially with quote unquote white ethnic people, right? Which means Italian, Irish, right? From
Hungarian,
Eastern
Polish,
Eastern Europe, right? A Jewish
Russian, Ukrainian.
community, right? All of that. And people, those families suffered the same mistreatment at different periods. However, this president is being much more aggressive, and they've admitted they're not just going after the criminals, they're going after everybody. And what I say to people is this is going to get real
Mm.
when your fifth grader comes home and says, my best friend, uh, his parents are gone
Oh my
and they're in a
goodness.
detention facility. Or my best friend is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, you're gonna have to explain to your kids why that is and
Yeah.
why that's a rational policy.
That okay.
Yeah.
So I want to just, again, anybody tuning in right now, this is Trevor Crow, Trevor and Friends. I am on a Zoom call with our Attorney General of the state of Connecticut, William Tong, talking about his efforts to try to ameliorate some of this insanity around ICE and how people are getting seized off the streets by masked people who have no badges and in unmarked cars, etc. And I want to go back to something that you're saying is at the very basis of all of this, William. It's the hatred, right? The hatred and this time of grievance that we are
Yeah.
living in. And
Yeah.
what this administration is doing is making villains of a certain group of people. And bottom line, we know better. We're Americans. We are almost all of us, unless you're really an indigenous person or of indigenous descent, we're all immigrants. I'm a Irish Catholic immigrants from several generations ago. And how is it that we as a people are allowing our administration to continue this sort of policy that is wrapped up in hatred and it just and the reason why I started this show is because I care about relationships and politics. And here we are talking about the most terrible, darkest part of our human selves, that we want to scapegoat a group of people who work incredibly hard, who don't actually have a decent road to legalization,
Yeah.
right? That's what makes me crazy here.
It all of that is true. And um it 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 confounds me. I mean, I know why, right? People are angry and they're angry about a great many things. And I don't want to minimize that people, even in Greenwich, Connecticut, are struggling. And that struggle is real, and I get it. But we also still, to this day, last time I checked, live in one of the wealthiest states in the most powerful nation on earth.
Yeah,
And our
so true.
communities are the wealthiest communities in the wealthiest state in the most powerful nation on earth. And if you think America's in decline, you don't get out much.
Yeah,
You know, if you think it's so much better in China and I'm a Chinese American, try it,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Try Shanghai and affluent parts of Shanghai during COVID, where people are scrambling in their luxury high rises to find food because
Hmm.
everything was locked down, right? Talk about disappearing people off the street. If you criticize the government there, good luck.
Yeah, yeah.
So we are still so blessed, and yet there's a ton of anger. And
Why is that? I do not understand
just
what
the other
it.
day, somebody wrote a piece in a paper in Connecticut. They clearly had an Italian American surname, and they blasted me and the governor for our immigration, our approach immigration, state policy, all these undocumenteds, apparently he allegedly um, who offend him and
Mm,
take jobs at the expense of Americans or take and consume social services that are otherwise only available to Americans. And the answer is a lot of that is just not true.
not true.
They're not doing jobs that you know, college
Americans,
educated white Americans would rather do.
no,
Okay. They're not doing those jobs. They're doing jobs that need doing because we don't have enough people to do them,
that's right.
right? The idea that they're consuming mass amounts of public services is not true, right? They don't get Medicaid, they don't get Social Security. When they get sick, yes, they walk in the emergency room, but they don't have access to health care.
Yeah.
Okay. Many immigrant families um, include veterans and people that are serving in our
Mm,
military right now.
hmm.
Um,
And they pay taxes. I believe
and
the
they pay
movement said
taxes and they pay
96
taxes.
billion last year.
And and if you want to crush Connecticut's economy, pull all of those workers out tomorrow and deport
Oh
them.
my goodness.
Go ahead, try it.
God, what a mess. It's really incredible. So William, we have about 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to wrap it up in a second, but Trevor Crow, Trevor and Friends, on with our Attorney General of the State of Connecticut, William Tong. Are Can you just kind of give us some words of maybe positive, like what can we do? What are your suggestions here? I don't want to get too dark and despairing.
Help
Help
help people,
help
right? Do
people.
whatever you can to fight. Go to a protest, go to a demonstration, write an op-ed, all of that's great. Okay. But actually, what I think you can do if you want to do something helpful and productive
Mhm.
is help somebody in need.
Help somebody in need.
Everybody,
I love it.
uh,
All right, William, we do actually have to wrap it up right now.
good.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Love that final message. Help somebody now. Everybody
Thanks,
take
Trevor.
care. See you Tuesday next week, noontime. Everybody take care. Trevor Crow and Friends, WGCH 1490. Thank you, William.